is something I talked about a little bit last month, and something I've had a few conversations individually with people about. I have a document online. I've just updated it in the past hour or two, so if you visited in the past, go back and you'll see a quick explanation of this. Basically what I'm trying to do is figure out how I can set up a mesh network in our small town, and how to do it in such a way that I can earn enough money and to cover my cost while setting it up, and to also have a good base for more revenue generation in the future. If you didn't see Zach's presentation on mesh networks during the last conference, it's basically a way to set up Wi-Fi so that you have routers spread across a geographic area. You can extend coverage, Wi-Fi coverage, over that whole area with a single sign-on. You can have one or more connections from those routers. Well, they interconnect with each other, so if one router fails, then the other routers will communicate with each other and route around the damaged router. But you can also connect to the internet along several gateways within the mesh. So if you've got one connection to the network go down, then the mesh can communicate through other gateways. These are very resilient. They were used to help avoid kill switch on the network, but it's also, I think, a nice addition to a town, to a large neighborhood, an apartment complex, a way to give Wi-Fi coverage across a large area, and give value to customers that they see, even if they're not particularly worried about an internet outage or a kill switch. I'm going to start with a small coffee shop. At the moment, I've got a single Wi-Fi router set up there. I'd like to buy 2 or 3 mesh routers, either to convert using FryFunk software, the way Zach talked about during the conference, or alternatively, I've also spoken to someone about open mesh networks that look like they're pre-configured and easier to work with. I'll get 2 or 3 routers with a single gateway configured into an open mesh network using that equipment. Probably have an upfront cost of $250 and maybe 8 hours to configure the network and set up the routers. That's going to be the starting point, and not much different than just setting up web access from a single router for the cafe in terms of what the return on investment gives you. There'll be a single landing page when you sign into the network with the configuration, so that will give a little bit of potential also for selling ads, having ad space. I invite you also to look at this as a way of starting from a single site and setting up an open mesh network in your local area. Alternatively, if you've already worked with these things and you see flaws in the business model, drop me an email, send me a message. I'll give you access to the Google Docs, and we can start modifying it before I commit and spend money, and we can try and avoid mistakes up front. So that's the first stage. The second stage of the business model involves going to people bordering on the Wi-Fi connection and pitching to them how to extend the network to their premises. Sell them a pre-configured router, add enough of a markup so that you can cover the administration for adding them onto the network, and also for paying for the router. I'm guessing that's going to be like $100 per node. So you go to your neighbor across the street and you say, hey, my coffee shop's set up. If you'd like to have internet access and Wi-Fi access, even if you don't have your own DSL or or cable modem for internet access already, you can just piggyback off my internet access for a one-time fee of $100. That way, I'm hoping that we can extend the network. We can take it out to their site, perhaps across the street, and then the place next to them, you can go there next, make the same pitch, try and extend the network. Now, some of those people may already have internet access. If so, then you offer them to act as a second gateway onto the network. That's the next stage I'll be talking about. One of the questions I'm not sure yet at this stage is who owns these routers. If I sell them to the neighbor and say, here's a pre-configured router that gives you access on the conditions that you allow other people to connect to it, then I have to worry what happens if they move, take the router away, or just decide that they're not interested in their router participating in the network anymore. I would lose the node. On the other hand, if I keep ownership of the node, then I have to worry what happens if it's damaged. Can I still reach it? Is it physically locked inside their building during the day, or can I reach it to reconfigure it, flash update it, do something else, even if it's a physical connection, to maybe put it inside a more protective housing, or fix lightning damage, something else. Okay, back to the issue of if a neighbor already has wired access, then I can offer for them to act as another gateway. If it's a private person, then perhaps they just want to add that extra bandwidth on there, so that if they go to their backyard and are maybe picking up their signal not from their own cable modem the way they used to, connected to their own particular Wi-Fi, but maybe it's bouncing off the neighbors, then pitch them return on investment that if they've joined the mesh network, if they plug in their internet connection to the mesh, then they'll be able to get good coverage from their service, even if it's bounced off a neighboring node. Or they might simply want to buy their own second node to extend it farther out to their backyard. If it's a merchant, if the place across the network isn't a private individual, but maybe another shop selling clothing, then you can pitch them on the idea, okay, well, we can, in addition, add you to the list of advertisers on the landing page for the mesh network. Gradually, in this way, I'm hoping to find a balance between different motivations, so that we can extend a mesh network throughout a whole neighborhood. I've got some more technical issues I want to look at, such as, can you throttle down the bandwidth? So if the clothing store, say, does decide to donate bandwidth to the project, say they've got 2 megabits of bandwidth, wired bandwidth on their site, how easy is it to take just 1 megabit per second and add that to the network, and then let them participate in the advertising on the landing page on a pro rata basis. Maybe they are giving 1 megabit per second, other merchants are giving another 9 megabits per second. The clothing shop gets 1/10 of the time in a rotation of banners on that web page. Once all this is in place, another way you can look at monetizing it is to sell services to the mesh network. I've been trying to think of different services. The only one that that's clear to me at the moment is perhaps additional bandwidth. Maybe, as I said in my earlier example, maybe different people around the neighborhood, different merchants have donated 10 megabits per second to the mesh network, 10 megabits per second onto the internet for a mesh network that may have 30, 40 megabits per second just by virtue of the speed of the Wi-Fi routers. Somebody might want to be able to get higher bandwidth. Maybe they want to watch their Netflix without worrying about their speed being choked off by different people around town participating in the free network. They could perhaps log in to a separate server that's inside the mesh network that has a lot more bandwidth, and that's perhaps running a proxy server that gives them more network. So they could go to the proxy server, perhaps running Squid, log in using their account on a fee-paying basis, and get back end from that server much higher bandwidth, say dedicated 2, 3, 4 megabits per second just for themselves. I'm still not sure how practical even that example is. Proxy servers adding bandwidth for something like Netflix, I'm not sure will add that much speed. I'll have to think of exactly what sort of technology we use in those services, but there may even be other services that can be monetized, voice over IP, video over IP, perhaps just within the network, connection to local radio stations, over IP. So that's still out in the scheming stages, but that's the launching point for the mobile mesh network project. I'll be experimenting with it some more. I'm about at the stage now where I'm ready to configure equipment and set it up and start seeing if I can sell some more routers. I'll keep you up to date on the project as much as I can in these monthly meetings. Otherwise, contact me personally, mark@thomastechcon.com, or via the ANCAP Entrepreneur Network website, via Facebook, via Skype at Mark's phone to keep up to date with that project. Okay, I have been completely ignoring my chat window. Okay, I haven't missed anything. If you have any questions, just Skype me. See what help you need, or what help you can offer me. Let me just check and make sure I've got audio. Got one chat that says that for the last half hour nobody's been hearing me. Let me just make sure it's set up before I continue. Okay, let me continue on with the assumption it is working. If not, I'll redo everything on a YouTube and continue later. In which case, it doesn't even matter what I say right now because you'll never hear it. Mesh network. We've just covered. Now I'd like to talk some about Odie's Cafe. Odie's Cafe is my current project that's taking up a lot of my attention. Basically, the chief project that takes up my attention is consulting, GIS consulting. If you have any need to do GIS work, let me know, please. That's basically the only one of my projects at this stage that's bringing in revenue. Farming that I do with selling lamb and raising sheep is at about the break even, covering the cost of feed and other things. The GIS work, the computer technical work is the only thing at this stage that is bringing in revenue.